Hey there guys, I'm Will and welcome to FP1. Now let's have a chat about the Belgium Grand Prix. Now it was a fantastic race, full of drama, full of fantastic overtakes, but of course quite a somber weekend given the events of the Formula 2 race on Saturday, and my heart does go out to all those affected and Antoine Hubert's family and friends. But it was fantastic to see all the tributes to him and all the tributes on all of the cars and drivers' helmets, and Charles Leclerc, the race winner in the end, dedicating his win to Antoine, who of course he raced with throughout his junior career. It was a nice and really touching moment to see. So let's run down the race order. And as I said, Charles Leclerc taking home his first ever win, and a fantastic race from him today. Didn't put a foot wrong, apart from maybe a slight mistake in the opening laps when he ran wide at the chicane. But managed the race fantastically, managed his tyres really well as well. Ferrari had a good strategy, at least on his side of the garage. It was a bit of a weird thing from them today, especially pitting Vettel first. And of course Vettel got out ahead and did some fantastic laps, but it just fell off the pace at the end. So on one side of the garage, Leclerc's race was managed really well. Sebastian Vettel's race was a bit of a shambles, but we'll get onto that in a minute. The Mercedes then rounded up the podium. Lewis Hamilton in second and Valtteri Bottas in third. A bit of a quiet race then because Hamilton nearly got Leclerc at the end of the race. They just didn't really have the pace. They were definitely faster on the Sunday, but especially during Saturday, they were just nowhere in comparison to the Ferraris this weekend. To be honest, I think I will see a very similar thing in Monza next time out. It's a very similar track of power sense to the circuit, and with Ferrari having the strongest engine at the moment, I wouldn't be surprised to see another Ferrari win there. So P5 then, everyone was expecting it to go to Lando Norris, who had a fantastic start, did really, really, really well. Got through all that carnage at Turbo, which we'll get to in a minute. But with one lap to go, something went wrong. We don't quite know what the issue was yet, but he was complaining of vibrations in the last sort of third of the race. But he ends up finishing 11th, and Alexander Albon, his Red Bull debut, ends up taking that P5 slot. A fantastic race from him. Did struggle, I think, in the opening stages just to find the car a little bit. Just struggled to get past the Renault of Nico Hülkenberg at the beginning. But once he pitted and was on those soft tyres, his race absolutely came alive, flew through the field. So a fantastic race from him today. So Sergio Perez, again, quite a quiet race for Racing Point in P6 today. Of course, he could have got P5 had he not been overtaken by Albon, but I think by the end his tyres had just completely fallen off the cliff. And he was lucky to get back there. I think given a few more laps, even Kvyat and Giovinazzi might have got close to him had Gio not binned it in the wall in the final lap. We'll get onto him in a minute. Danny Kvyat gets P7 for Toro Rosso. A good showing from him today. Made some good moves to work his way up the field, especially having had a penalty, I think, coming into the weekend. He did really, really well there. So good job there for Danny Kvyat. So a late resurgence then for Nico Hülkenberg in the Renault car today. I think he struggled a little bit, ran wide at turn 1 to avoid all that melee, dropped down to about P14 I think, and then took him a while just to work his way back up. But as everyone's tyres started dying at the end, he really came alive, took his teammate really, really easily actually, and then got past Pierre Gasly in the Toro Rosso as well. Then of course Giovinazzi went off, I think it was P1 in the final laps, so that puts up to P8. Definitely helps Renault a lot in the Constructors' Championship, of course, fighting with McLaren and Racing Point at the moment, and with both McLarens out, that's definitely going to help them fight their way up to that 5th, 4th spot. Whether they can still get 4th in the championship this year, I don't know. We're going to have to give it a few more races and see if that's still an attainable target. But a good race for Nico Hülkenberg, especially after he found out he'd been dropped from the Renault team this weekend in favour for Esteban Ocon, starting from 2020. Pierre Gasly then beats Max Verstappen in his first race back at Toro Rosso. Of course, I'm joking there. We obviously know what happened to Verstappen in turn 1. But not a bad race from him, to be fair. He's taken the demotion very, very well, and hasn't really put a foot wrong all weekend. No real big mistakes. We did see him being a little bit more punchy as well. I think he does definitely prefer the way that Toro Rosso drives, and with his driving style, he just seems to prosper a lot more in that team. So it was good to see him sort of back to his best, back to how he was racing in the 2018 season. And yeah, good job for Pierre Gasly today. And then Lance Stroll finishing the top 10. Did a good race today. I think he did make a few bits of contact with a few drivers. Got very close with, I think it was Romain Grosjean in the final laps as well. And then, of course, made that contact with Ricciardo at the start. It looked like a racing incident to me in turn 1, lap 1. It is always going to be. I think everyone was just everywhere. No one had any idea what was going on, especially given the contact with Verstappen and Raikkonen at the beginning, which we'll get onto in a minute. Lando Norris ends up being classified as P11 because Kevin Magnussen was lapped. And I think he pulled over just after the start-finish straight, so he, I guess, was considered being lapped then. I'm not too sure how that works, but sadly it's still going to be 0 points for him when he could have taken home a large haul in P5. A big shame today, but a very, very good and mature drive from him anyway today, so I think he still should take a lot out of that. Kevin Magnussen just fell away, started really high up and then just kept getting overtaken. Not bad, I guess, to finish in P12 at the end. I think he was really far down the field at one point. Clashed again nearly with Nico Hülkenberg at the chicane at the end of the first sector. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see those two as teammates, let's just say that. Romain Grosjean in the other Haas, they just had no race pace today in P13 and P12. Yeah, they really need to sort that out, especially coming into Monza. It's going to be a very difficult circuit for them, given the power-sensitive nature of that. And with that Ferrari engine as well, they really shouldn't be struggling. So, yeah, there's something wrong with the aero package of that car, which they're going to need to sort out very, very quickly. Daniel Ricciardo was running in the points for most of the race. I think, again, that contact at turn 1, he had to pit on lap 1, and then Renault just sort of left him out on the hard compounded tyre for the rest of the way. It might even have been the medium compound now I think about it. And yeah, that tyre was never going to last 44 laps. So what Renault were thinking there, I'm not too sure. But P14 for him, he'll be disappointed because Renault had a lot of pace today because he was P4 in the final practice session. And had he not had that penalty, he wouldn't have ended up in that turn 1 collision. Or I guess you can never really say that, but he would have stood less of a chance of being caught up with the racing points anyway. And you never know, could have pulled home some big points for Renault today. Yeah. George Russell, only just noticed he finished P15 now. He did really well today. I mean, obviously that Williams is a dog of a car at the moment, and P15 in the Williams is not bad at all. So good on George Russell. Kimi Raikkonen had floor damage again from that collision with Max Verstappen at the beginning. Now, again, I say racing incident. If I had to give fault to anyone, I would put it on Max. I think he just was a little bit optimistic diving down the inside. We've seen he clashed with Raikkonen in, I want to say 2017 or 2016. At the exact same corner. Didn't that time nearly flip Raikkonen on his side, but yeah, he's been optimistic down that corner before. I think, yeah, if there's any blame, it would be going towards his direction. Kimi could have maybe given him a bit more space on the outside, but I'm going to go with a racing instant at the end of the day on that one. Robert Kubica, P17, absolutely nowhere. And yeah, just struggling, really. No real pace. Just the story of his season so far. Antonio Giovinazzi. Now, he is someone who I think does need to look out for his seat, especially with now Hülkenberg being torn between, either Haas or Alfa Romeo effectively for 2020. He's really got to look out. And honestly, when he was sat in P8, I thought, this is the turn of form we were looking for. And then somehow, I've not seen the replay yet, he bins it in the barriers at the end of Pouhon. And I don't know really what to say on that one. Just a big shame for Gio, and hopefully something he doesn't come to regret come the end of the year. So the true drivers that weren't classified then, Carlos Sainz and Max Verstappen. Sainz having some sort of clutch issue. The car just did not want to start. He stalled on the grid, got it going, and then stalled coming into his pit box at the end of lap 1, and then ended up pulling over at the bus stop chicane only a few laps later. So absolute shambles from him today. It's a shame because it looked like the McLarens had a fair bit of pace, and I think he could have worked his way through the field. And Max Verstappen, again, we've already touched on him. Of course, went straight on at the start of Eau Rouge, having damaged the steering column of that Red Bull. And yeah, it's the first. Here's a staggering stat. It's the first time Max Verstappen has finished outside the top 5 since his retirement in Hungary in 2018. Now, if that's not consistency, I don't know what is. Big tops off to Max Verstappen on that one. So overall, a very good race, and definitely a race that Antoine Hubert would have been proud of, I'd say. One thing I do want to touch on, because I have been contemplating whether I want to bring this up or not today, but the barriers and the runoff around this track. Obviously, it's quite a difficult topic to talk about at the moment. We had a big crash in Formula 3 as well. Simo Laxton, thankfully, getting out. He had a crash at Blanchimont and is kind of getting completely wedged underneath the tyres. Now, as we know, these cars are getting faster and faster and faster, and I think the lap record was broken, or it either got very close to being broken today by the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. So, do we need to think about the runoff areas, especially at the top of Eau Rouge? And I'm not saying it would have prevented what happened on Saturday, but I do think we should maybe extend that runoff area at the top of Raidillon just a little bit. Even if it means just chopping down a few trees, just extend that barrier outward a bit. That way, if a car does go off and hits that barrier, it doesn't end up getting spewed across the track and possibly into the path of other cars. Now, would that have prevented what happened on Saturday? It's impossible to say. No one would have, no one expected what happened, and it's absolutely tragic. But I do think coming out of this weekend after having 2 high-profile accidents, one of which very, very serious, and again, my heart does go out to those involved, is it time to start looking at maybe the tyre barriers and the runoff at that circuit and possibly making changes for the future races? But on that somber note, then I am going to leave you off. What did you think of the Belgian Grand Prix? Let me know down in the comments below. And of course, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys next week for the Italian Grand Prix.